Now I'd like to ask Chris Hollins to come up to the stage. We're going to present some ideas about poverty, welfare, and work. And maybe we'll start with actually Chris saying a few things, and then I will present very briefly some elements of a study that Tracy Shildrick was going to present today. She's taken ill today, as was Brian Matthews. So I'll just quickly walk you through some very interesting findings that Tracy's put together. But first, let's have Chris, who's the chair of Voluntary Action Leeds.
Thanks, Gary. I'm not going to talk about research. At Voluntary Action Leeds, we set out to document the ways in which the voluntary sector and the third sector in Leeds is engaging with poverty. We did that over the summer, and we had responses from about 150 organisations, about half of whom were face-to-face. We were looking to find ways that that poverty impacted upon the third sector and the very many different aspects that there are of it, and how the third sector was impacting upon poverty. You could argue that there's nothing really new to be said about poverty. Joseph Rowntree set out the issues in the 19th century, and most of those issues are still with us, although perhaps it has become more complex in a global economy. What is clear from our report is the extent to which the third sector is engaged with poverty and inequalities. Education, jobs, environment, social care, health, childcare, etc., etc. However, one very clear message emerged. They want to see the issues of poverty raised higher in the public agenda. They want campaigning about poverty. The choices for individuals who are in poverty are often perfectly straightforward. The choice between eating and heating. The choice between, am I going to eat or is my child going to eat? Can I afford the bus fare to get to the interview? Am I going to be sanctioned at the benefit office? Can I find someone to help me understand this form or to translate it for me? It's also clear that poverty in Leeds is complex, not least that between poverty and inequality. That complexity leads especially to responses to being limited to the aspects of poverty with which you can grasp, and without necessarily looking at the bigger picture, if you're able to look at the bigger picture. Each page of the report that we've prepared, it's in draft form at the moment, but each page of the report presents issues which will require further examination. I know that people sitting around this room will look through every page and say, we want to know more about that, or that, or that. That's what researchers do. However, there is one simple question that I would like to impose. And it is very simple, but the answer is, of course, not quite so easy. But the question is, what is needed to eradicate poverty in Leeds? Do we know what would be needed to either reduce or remove poverty? If we knew, would we be willing to put our names to a target to reduce or even remove poverty? And you'd say, well, of course we would. But I did actually ask, I've been asking a few people about that recently. And one answer that I got recently from I won't say who it was, but somebody leading in public life, one answer to that question is that to set targets provides an opportunity to fail. And if we're seen to fail, or if we're likely to be seen to fail, we won't set targets. Therefore, we won't say that we're going to try and eradicate poverty. On the other hand, just to compare it, and we've had the forthcoming election mentioned a few times today. 8 years ago, Barack Obama made the promise that he was going to close Guantanamo Bay. He made a very clear promise. That was what he intended to do. And we know that he hasn't actually managed to achieve it. I think that he honestly set out what he was aiming to do. But the question is, should he have publicly said, I'm going to do this, this is my target, this is what I want to do? I think he was right to do that, even though he has not yet been able to do that. And I don't suppose he will do that in the next 2 or 3 months that he's got left. The point being that we need to establish targets for ourselves. We need to make sure that we know where we're going and that we're going to do something about it. And as Kate said right at the start, we take no action on the right levers, I think that's what she said, and as somebody else mentioned, we need to advocate and campaign for change, and that's what the third sector in Leeds wants. So I return to my question, what would it take to eradicate poverty in Leeds? And I'd like to suggest that is actually one of the research questions which is taken forward from this event. You might think it's too big a question, something is too big to answer, it's too complex, therefore we won't do anything about it. But I would like to suggest that we do actually try and do something about it. What do we know the resources required? Do we have them available? Would pooling resources amongst public sector organisations, including perhaps some private sector organisations, would that be enough? If we knew that the issue was housing, do we have enough land to make available to make housing available? If jobs is the issue, can the economy meet that need? So it requires lots of disciplines to work together in order to answer that question. There are some opportunities coming up. Local government has got to reduce its resources, but that means that they're thinking differently. And in Leeds, they're genuinely thinking differently about the way they're approaching their work. There's Brexit, and who wants to talk about Brexit? But it does present opportunities. And there's devolution as well, something else which, again, I'm not too sure about, but it presents opportunities. If powers are going to be handed down from central government to local government, it presents opportunities to do things differently that haven't been done in the past. So the simple question is, it is a simple question, but it is seen as being too difficult and too complex. But unless we ask ourselves that question and set ourselves the target, we will never move towards achieving it. That's the way I want to leave it.
Thank you very much. All right. Now, as mentioned, Tracy can't be with us today, and I won't attempt to present her work in full, but just to say that she herself has a Joseph Rowntree Foundation study that she was planning to present, and basically, whilst first describing anti-poverty strategy, she moves through in the study some popular ideas that have been put forth about people who are in poverty, that they're idle and so on, that benefits are too high. This, of course, is very much pertinent to the current news of the day. And basically what she then comes to, with the study that she's completed, is the problem of the low pay, no pay cycle. And so it's a very interesting new study that she's completed, and I would urge people to get in touch. Perhaps we can help at the LSSI to make that study available for people that are interested. Tracy's a distinguished professor of sociology here at Leeds, and we're very happy that she's here with us.